I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Hi everybody, Ron here from The Truth About Addiction. Today's guest is Dr. Brooke Scheller. Brooke's in New York, in her spacious apartment.
We were just reminiscing on the days of Ron's New York City life.
Yeah. I have a home that's 5 bedrooms, 2 offices. My lounge and dining room is probably bigger than most people's apartments, and it's like,
yeah.
I think back to the days I was living in New York, it was quite freaky, but it was still
well, like you said, you have acres and I have feet or meters, I guess you would look at it as meters. I have a couple of meters here.
And you know what? You got enough room to lay down, you got a home.
That's it. That's all it takes. Just space for me and the dog and place to take care of myself, and that's all I need.
Okay, so Brooke, what's your story? You recovering through nutrition?
Yeah, so my background, and thanks for having me. Thanks so much for having me on the show, Ron. And
my pleasure, honestly.
I'm excited to be here and to learn more about you and to speak with your audience. And mostly what I'm working on right now is I just am publishing this book. It's called How to Eat to Change How You Drink. And it is a guide to using nutrition to support changing your relationship with alcohol, but also healing your body through nutrition as well. As we both know, alcohol is quite damaging to the system, to our brains, to our gut, to our hormones, to all these different areas of our body. And my background is I'm a doctor of nutrition. I've been in the nutrition field for almost 15 years, and I also had a drinking problem. And it is not, separate for me in that we were sharing a little bit about trauma and things throughout our childhood and upbringing. And I share a little bit of that about my story in the book to share that identification with people. As you know, the identification is so key, that when we can relate to others and people can understand that they're not alone in the way that they felt or the experiences that they had, that they can start to see that there's a path forward or there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I was a heavy drinker starting as a teenager and carried that behavior on throughout my late teens, my 20s, my early 30s, until I hit a point in my early 30s where I was recognizing that my life was problematic for lack of a better word, in that I had a good life. I had graduate degrees and I had a good job and I had a roof over my head, but I was miserable. I was experiencing extreme anxiety and depression. I was starting to have health effects. I was experiencing elevated liver enzymes and really got to a point where I was sick of my own shit, for lack of a better word. Hope it's okay that I say that. And decided to join a 12-step program and to start a sobriety journey. And when I started that journey, I wasn't really thinking much about nutrition at all, which is my area of expertise. Like I said, I've been in the space for about 15 years. I have 3 degrees in nutrition, including a doctorate degree. And it was shortly after I got sober, maybe about 3 months, that I realized that there was so much conversation going on in the recovery space, and a lot of discussion on social media around sober and sober curious. And we were talking about all of these important angles of mental health and addressing traumas and addressing all of these very common approaches to managing substance use disorders or alcohol elimination. But we weren't talking about the physiology. We weren't talking about what's happening in the body, what's going on with our biology. And that really started my kind of mission to understand more about the effects of alcohol on the body and start to understand how we use natural methods like food and supplementation to support healing the body, but also to support understanding, like, well, if I have a problem with alcohol and if I'm really struggling to eliminate alcohol, well, what is going on in my body that maybe I can use foods and nutrients and supplements to actually support that. So the work that I do is kind of twofold in that I help support people to heal their body in that post-alcohol state. But we also talk about reasons why maybe someone might be experiencing alcohol cravings or really struggling with depression or anxiety, because all of these things can have actually a lot to do with what's going on in our biochemistry.
Yeah, I agree. I'm nodding my head because different foods can affect me.
Mm-hmm.
I've been clean and sober a long time. My last drink was in 1982. So before you were born. So anyway, but I still know today, because my body's so clean, different foods can affect me.
Yep.
They can change my mood. They can I suffer with migraines a real bad lot. I suffer with headaches a lot. And different foods can trigger that.
Absolutely.
Gut problems, different foods can trigger that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fully aware that food's an essential part of living, but I'm also
Mm-hmm.
aware that the right food is more important than food.
Right.
You know, so that's
Totally.
my experience with nutrition, because I've always trained.
Mm-hmm.
I took supplements and I trained a lot. You know, like I'm an addict. You know, I'm obsessive compulsive. You
Mm-hmm.
tell me to run a kilometre, I'm going to run 10, because one felt
Mm-hmm.
really good, so 10's going to feel so much better.
Totally.
Mm.
In fact, in my first couple of months in sobriety, I ran a half marathon, which is what so many of us do, right?
Yes.
We become runners, or we do the other extreme things that aren't maybe killing us as quickly.
Yeah. Well, I went to New York because I got tattooed. I
Me
started
too.
getting tattooed. Now I got a full bodysuit from my neck to my toes.
Awesome.
Obsessive compulsive. That was my bloodletting. It was my ritual of. It was, some people think it was punishment, but it wasn't. It was letting go. It was dealing with pain, learning how to deal with pain, and how to get my brain to be stronger than my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
My feelings were, get the fuck out of here. This is hurting too much. I don't want this anymore. Then I'd have to tell my brain, shut up.
Yeah.
You've
I
committed.
get that.
You have to stay. You're committed. You've made a decision. For once in your life, follow something through. It was, you know, everybody has their own journey, as you said, but the nutrition stuff really interests me, because I know with the Indigenous people in Australia, my adopted nephew, son, the illegitimate son that I never slept with his mum, I don't know, whatever you call it. You know, I've had him since he was 17 years of age, and he's about 40 something. So I've had him a long time, and I've just been with him up in the Tiwi Islands. We hunt together, we fish together, and he goes on really strict meat diets a lot, and he never eats before 12 o'clock, and he has all this incredible discipline around food. He's also extremely fit and strong, and you know, so he's got this obsessive compulsive disorder around his food and his exercise and his training and what he puts into his body, you know, and how many liters of water he drinks a day, and he's got all this, you know. Me, it's like, okay, I don't eat that because it makes me feel bad. I don't understand why. I just know it doesn't make me feel good, so I don't eat it. You know, but yeah, so it's incredible. As we know, it's going to sound horrible, but it's true. People get sober and they start eating their emotions. They start
Well, and there's an important reason why that happens, right? So a big part of what I do is I study the biochemistry of that. I look at things from a science standpoint and I say, okay, well, why do we transfer to a sugar addiction or a food addiction, right? And a lot of us think that it has everything to do with our dopamine, and that food or sugar can help release dopamine, which is where we become deficient when we take away alcohol. But actually, there's another key piece that I speak about a lot with my work, which is blood sugar. And for those of us who have a heavy drinking history, we have a tendency toward hypoglycemia, which is the tendency toward low blood sugar. And what happens is when we quit drinking, we still have these dysregulated blood sugar pathways. And when we go long periods of time, we go into these slumps of low blood sugar. And what happens when blood sugar is low is, well, a normal person might crave sugar, they might crave carbohydrates, but for those of us who have a drinking history, we also crave alcohol, right? And so when we take away the alcohol piece, what's left is, if we are experiencing these kinds of ups and downs in our blood sugar, is we're going to need something to get us out of that low blood sugar state. And what that typically is it's sugar or it's carbohydrates. And so that's a really important thing to think about, because what I do with a lot of my clients, especially early on in their recovery journey, is I'm working with them to implement lots and lots of protein every couple of hours, having something to eat, not going long periods of time without eating, because anytime we get into that low blood sugar state, we're going to start experiencing sugar cravings, but it's also going to put us at risk for alcohol cravings. So this is something super simple that anyone who's listening can start to implement right away, bringing in more protein more frequently throughout the day.
Yeah, beautiful. It's really nice. You know, I got told this in 1981 about hypoglycemia.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a guy, he was an American guy. He ran a rehabilitation center in Australia, extremely intelligent about the disease of alcoholism and addictions.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't work the program himself, was a
Mm-hmm.
hypocrite and was everything else, but he knew a lot about it. And he said, there's a new study. This is 1981. He said, there's a new study about hypoglycemia. We didn't even know it was. So we started doing this study within the rehab. There was 160 people in this rehab, and all of us had hypoglycemia.
Yep.
160
I'm not surprised.
Every single one of us, we filled out this questionnaire, and it all came up that we all had hypoglycemia.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another thing you touched on, which really, I might have to go back to it, which I'm having trouble right now with food. I used to eat every 2 hours. I'd have 6 small meals a day. That's when I trained. And I had a lot of protein, but I used to have 6 small meals a day, just small meals, which it stopped me from putting weight on, but it also sustained my migraines. It didn't stop them, but it made them livable.
Yeah, it's important to keep ourselves in that kind of regulated blood glucose state, because if something like a migraine, for example, is triggered by potentially low blood sugar, which could be possible, then those smaller, more frequent meals. And it's kind of a controversial topic right now, because there's a lot of conversation also about intermittent fasting, which is go long periods of time without eating, right? And it's not to say that that isn't beneficial and isn't beneficial for certain people during certain stages of their life, but for anyone who's in recovery, especially early recovery, that can be especially triggering when it comes to things like sugar or alcohol cravings. So I'm always encouraging my clients or my group members. I have an online community. We actually have members in Australia, New Zealand, all around the world. And I am always encouraging them to focus on those more frequent meals rather than the longer periods of time, even though that's a hot button topic right now that everybody wants to start implementing right now.
Yeah, but you know what the funny part is? 12-step programs tell you the HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and serious.
Totally.
That came in later, the serious part. When I first got sober, the serious part wasn't there, you know? So, yeah, I laugh because, as I said, my nephew doesn't eat breakfast. I tell him breakfast is the most important meal of the day. This is my crazy, because I'm old school. He's this new school. He's 14 years sober now.
Awesome.
And we have this conflict of, you know, he has meditation tapes by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and as you know, talking to you all the time. I went and meditated in India, but it's complete silence.
Awesome. Oh, I want to do that. That's on my to-do list, my bucket list.
Go to Pune. I went to Pune, to the ashram, to the ashram in Pune. I did that. Cool. 1994, I did that. I loved it.
Amazing. That's on my to-do list.
They do dancing meditations. They do lots of other meditations. But me, I like silence, complete silence for meditation. And when I have someone saying, breathe out, now listen, and I'm thinking, shut up, mate, I don't want to listen to you talking to me. You know what I mean? So it confuses my Zen moment, because I'm like, shut up, man. You know, I don't want to hear your voice. I just want to relax. And Brock's always like got this stuff going really loud and you know, like
I love it.
I'm like, man, I just want to meditate. Will you please piss off? Go to another room. No.
I'm a big talker, so I feel like a silent meditation would be like my ultimate test of life.
It's really
I think it's
difficult.
something. Yo, I'm sure it is.
When the thought comes into your mind, you say it's just a thought. Don't entertain it. It's just a thought. And people say, what do you get out of meditation? And this is, I'm stealing this from the Dalai Lama. He says, I don't get anything out of meditation. It's what I lose. I lose anxiety, I lose fear, I lose shame, I lose guilt, I lose anger. That's what you get out of meditation. It's what you lose. You lose all this horrible stuff, you know, that is negative and inflammatory towards my brain, because I still say, and I mean this sincerely, I have a thinking problem, not a drinking problem. You know, I haven't had a drink for a long time, but I still have bad thoughts.
You take the drink away, but you still have the defects, right? We're still here. The person is still in the skin. So we're still, you know, there's so many important aspects in recovery, right? There's the physical, there's the mental, there's the emotional, there's the spiritual. Right. And all of us have our own set of strengths and weaknesses, and places where, you know, for me, I was a meditator even before I came into recovery. So that piece was never hard for me. Socializing. I never knew how to socialize without alcohol. That was a tough one for me. Yep. And, you know, we all have our sets of challenges. And, you know, I think the more I go through my recovery, and I'm just about 2.5 years sober. So I am a baby compared to you and your adult sobriety.
One day.
We still have the same 24 hours, right? Although you're a little bit ahead of me in terms of time by 16 hours or so. But as we go through this process, like it's one of those things, it's a little bit of a mind bender in that we don't ever achieve the end, right? It's not like, think of weight loss, right? And we'll use this because we're talking nutrition. Oftentimes with weight loss, you're like, well, I'm going to lose 10 pounds, and you march toward this goal of 10 pounds and then you're there, right? With sobriety, it's like, well, you know, this is a lifelong process. And some people get overwhelmed by that idea or that feeling. I think it's one of the most beautiful things ever, right? I didn't always feel that way in the beginning. But we come to accept that, and we come to terms with that. We feel a heck of a lot better in this. And even when times get tough, I know that I can say that my experiences in sobriety have been 10 times greater than the experiences I've had when I was drinking. And that's what keeps me sober.
Yeah, I've got good news for you. Keeps getting better.
That's what I hear.
Oh, man. It used to frustrate the hell out of me when I used to hear people say that. Oh, wait to get to 5 years, man. I think, oh, man, get out of here. Then I got to 5. They wait to get to 10. I got to 10. Wait to get to 20. Got to 20. Wait to get to 30. I got to 30. It's like, this thing just keeps getting better. Yeah, I'm up to my 38 years because I stopped drinking alcohol in 82, and I still kept on. I had 3 relapses on heroin, or 1 on alcohol and 2 on heroin, because I found heroin, it's going to sound funny, a softer drug than alcohol.
But see, that tells you a lot about alcohol, right?
Yep.
That tells you a lot about alcohol.
People freak out when I say that to them. They say, you used to use heroin? I say, yeah. Really? And I go, yeah. Why? I say, because I couldn't drink alcohol. Alcohol affected me so badly, I couldn't guarantee my behavior once I started drinking. And I was a blackout drinker, and I was violent. And I drove while I drank. And all those good things, you know, things that you just shouldn't do. And I didn't do it intentionally. I didn't do it with a malice mind and thinking, oh, you know, I don't care. I just did it. There was I cannot guarantee once I put a drink in my mouth, I can no longer guarantee my behavior. And it's the first one that does the damage. It's like getting hit by a train. The first carriage kills you, not the last carriage.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's a good analogy. I like that analogy.
Yeah. So 2.5 years clean, living in New York. Oh, I've got a question. I wake up, I go to sleep, I wake up 1.5 hours later and I have to eat something, even if it's one piece of sugar, one jelly bean, one snake or something. And then I go back to bed and I go to sleep. Sometimes, and I do this every single night.
You're having hypoglycemia still, my friend.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it sounds like you're probably having a drop in blood sugar before you go to sleep. What time do you eat before compared to when you go to bed?
We eat pretty late. We'll have dinner and then we'll have a snack around about 8 or 9, and I'll go to bed at 10.
Yeah, it's late. You're having a blood sugar surge and a drop, and when you're having that drop, it's causing you to wake up.
Yeah.
So you fall asleep and wake back up?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's blood sugar.
Every night.
Ideally, I recommend clients or anyone to eat at least 3 hours before they go to sleep, which is hard for some people, depending on lifestyle and all those things, jobs and all that good stuff. But 3 hours gives your body a little bit of time to rebalance itself and stabilize blood sugar before we go to sleep.
And it's something that's real. It doesn't matter if you go to sleep at 4, it doesn't matter if I go to sleep at 1 o'clock at night. I'll wake up at 2:30. If I go to sleep at 10, I'll wake up at 11:30. It's usually 90 after I go to sleep.
Very interesting.
You
also have migraines, which is interesting. You still get them on a regular basis?
Every day. But I have
every day.
I have nerve damage.
Okay.
I have a lot of injuries. I sort of ran all the way. I've been running the whole time, you know. I'm 69 years of age.
So if you were my client, what I would do is I would run a bunch of nutrient testing on you, and I would see if you're deficient in any of your vitamins or minerals. Things like magnesium can be associated with migraines, but even things like anti-inflammatories like omega-3s can be really helpful in reducing inflammation, nerve support. I would put you on some omega-3s, my friend. Get you eating lots of fish, which you might be doing.
Well, I am today. I brought back 7 kilos of fish fillets. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What kind of fish?
Snapper. We call jewfish. Really beautiful reef fish. Really good eating fish.
Oh.
This is and we have a fish called barramundi. So you know, these are Australian, really, really, really beautiful fish. We caught a lot of fish, but yeah, I will go and see a nutritionist because now you've sparked a little bit of interest in my brain, and because the sad part is, as you are fully aware, a lot of times we know, but we need someone to tell us.
Yeah. Well, I also believe there's a lot of power in testing. So I run a lot of testing with my clients. I run blood work or stool testing or hormone testing because I believe it's important to see what's going on in the body. Like there's a lot of information out there. Yep. It's easy to get caught up in, should I be fasting? Should I be taking this supplement? Should I be eating a meat diet? Should I be eating vegan? Should I be, you know, there's all these different things. But for me, I like to know, well, what is this person's body telling me it needs, right? Because you might think that a vegan or a plant-based diet is the right diet for you based on what you read on the internet. Yeah. But if you are someone who's protein deficient, or you have mood issues, or you have, you know, other types of imbalances, maybe you're someone who doesn't absorb lots of B12, which is only found in animal foods, right? I would actually say, no, I think animal foods are important for you, right? So doing some of the testing and the analysis can also be really helpful in identifying what's the best approach for you.
Cool. I will do that. I will do that. So you wrote the book?
I wrote the book.
And how long ago did you publish it?
The book comes out in the US on December 26th. So I'm not sure when you're publishing this episode. And it comes out in UK territories on January 4th.
Did you have a publisher or did you self-publish?
I have a publisher.
Cool.
Yeah.
So they're taking all your profit.
Well, they're taking a lot of the profit.
I'm being funny.
Maybe not all of it, but a lot of it. And when you work with a publisher, it's, as you know, it's a lot of like we talked about before we got on, right? They give me hard deadlines. So like I have to submit it by this date and it gets out and I have no control over it, right? So it kept me on deadlines. And you know, it was something that when I started the journey of writing a book, I happened to have this, you know, I won't say I've had a lot of white light, lightning bolt, higher power moments, but I definitely did when I came with the idea of the book and cold emailed an agent and signed an agent and got 3 offers on the book proposal. And so it all just really came together in a very natural way. I think I would have maybe self-published it if it hadn't gotten picked up by a publisher, but you know, there's pluses and minuses to both sides of the coin for sure.
I self-published, and you've got to do all the advertising, you got to do all the marketing, you got to do, it's a lot harder work. There's a lady over in America called Karen. She wrote a book called New Beginnings. It's a book that most young girls have got in recovery. It's a tiny
I haven't heard of it.
A tiny little book. You should check it out. I think she's around about 50 years sober.
Wow.
She's lovely. She's absolutely adoring. She's just, so she sold 7 million copies of this little book.
Wow.
You know, like you got a day by day and a just for the day book and all those. She put one of these. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to see if I can find it for you.
Yeah.
It's daily meditation for women. I think it's a little
Each
bit
day
sexist.
a new beginning.
Yeah,
Each day a new beginning.
I think it's a little bit sexist saying that. Daily meditation for women. Love her. She's a treat. Please write her name down and check her out.
Oh, here's my dog standing up and putting her booty in the camera. She's all wrapped up in her sweater because it's 30 degrees out here, which is I guess 0 degrees in Celsius.
You're right. Yeah, no, it's cold. New York was cold. New York was cold. Yeah.
It's cold here.
It's cold, you know, not my fun, not my idea of fun. You should come to Australia.
You know, I've been meaning to. The closest I've ever gotten was Bali.
Yeah, well, that's only 6 hours away.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah,
same hemisphere.
Yeah, and you know, we have a lot of friends that live in Bali. The 12-step programs are massive in Bali.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of Aussies there. And as I said, my nephew, I'll call him my nephew, he left there to go to Bali yesterday, and I came home from Darwin yesterday. So he's gone to Bali for 2 months to do meditation and eat correctly.
Amazing.
He just does that sort of stuff all the time. But he does a lot of this stuff with the Aboriginal communities, teaches food and diet and nutrition and exercise. He's got all the older women out there walking, and he had some do half walking the other week, you know. He's doing a lot of really, really good stuff. You know, good.
It's so important. I mean, nutrition is one of those things that we're all eating already 3 times a day, at least, right? Yep. Sometimes 6 times a day. So if we could understand more about what to eat, how to eat, you know, how to make better choices and how to incorporate these different tools into our lifestyle, it can really be life-changing. It can be life-changing for anyone, but especially in recovery.
I am going to see a nutritionist in the next week now after this conversation.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm happy that it inspired you to do
everything for a reason.
Everyone can benefit from seeing a nutritionist. I truly believe that, regardless of what your goal might be. Nutrition, and that's, you know, I think one of the big misconceptions about nutrition is people think, you know, it's mostly for weight loss or it's for people with diabetes, but really nutrition is a tool that we can use for anything, including recovery, right? Which isn't something off the cuff that you might think those two things would connect, but the way that we eat impacts our gut, it impacts our brain, it impacts our kidneys, it impacts our hormones, it impacts our energy levels, you know, everything across the board. So if you have a goal or if you desire to feel better in some way, then we can all benefit from a little bit of nutrition.
We all desire to feel better. That's why we drank.
Exactly.
We drugged.
Exactly. It gave us that feel good, right?
Yeah.
So if we can find that feel good again, especially because in early recovery, we usually have a little bit of a We feel worse before we feel better. And that's something that's quite common and frustrating for people. But again, this is where nutrition can really help. And some of the foods that I like to recommend are things like beets. Beets are really high in B vitamins, which we deplete out when we drink alcohol. They help with blood flow to the brain. They're really good for supporting the liver. Another category are the cruciferous veggies, so things like broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage and kale. These are all really beneficial for liver, for digestive health, for energy levels, for our body's natural detox pathways. So there's so many things that we can do, right? And it's just simple tweaks that we can make. It doesn't necessarily have to be a full overhaul to our lifestyle, but even starting to change, bringing in more veggies, increasing protein content, simple things like that can really make a big difference.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love what you're doing. And I love what you're talking about, early recovery, because that's when we're most vulnerable. And
Totally.
I have seen a lot of people go out and relapse because they put on weight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had a lot of girls say, I'd rather go out and get back on the drugs and lose my fat ass. And I go, listen, you can lose your ass, change what you put in your mouth and get off your bum and walk. Simple.
Yeah.
Stop, watch what you put in your mouth and get off your butt.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, that's why it requires a lot of lifestyle changes, right? Because we have to learn how to cope in healthy ways. And food can be one of the ways that we try to cope. But just as powerful or more powerful, really, are things like exercise or meditation or community and connection. These are things that can really, in a healthy way, help us overcome.
I say to everybody, I'm a human being first, male or female second, and we're alcoholic addict third. Why do we only concentrate on the alcoholic? Let's come back to the human. We're human beings. As human beings, we have to eat. As human beings, we have to exercise. As male or female, we have certain things that are better for us, and some things are better for me than they are for you.
Right.
You know, we are different. I know it's hard to believe, but men and women are actually different. You know, women come from Mars and men come from, I don't know where they come from. I don't pretend to know.
I think it's men are from Mars, women are from Venus, right?
I don't know, but
that old book from a million years ago.
Yeah. But as I say to everybody, especially people in early recovery, if you want to talk about women, you're talking to the wrong guy. Because I've been around a long time, and all I know is you say yes, sir, no, sir. And okay, honey, you're right. No.
Yes, honey. Yes, honey.
Because you know what, mate, we are different, and we do have different needs and different chemical build-ups and makeups and things like that. And see, where a guy's not going to worry about getting a fat butt. These days, fat butt's fashionable. But it used to hurt my heart watching young girls come in and go out because of it. And I'd say I got too much weight on, and I just chose to drink again. It's like, come on, please. Beauty's on the inside. Stop looking at freaking magazines and social media bullshit.
Well, and again, because food can trip up that same addiction cycle, right? So if we take away the alcohol, we replace it with food, we're continuing to feed the addiction cycle, right? Yep. Whereas if we discontinue, we use food as a tool to help us in our sobriety rather than to replace the addictive nature. That's where we can really create change. I truly believe that. And I've seen it work with tons of clients. Like I said, I have clients around the world. And some of these really simple things, again, like I'll go back to the protein example, like just bringing in more protein more frequently, having breakfast. I'm with you on the breakfast piece, right? That alone, what we have for breakfast and how we set up our blood sugar in the morning affects what happens all the way at the end of the day. It affects actually us into the next breakfast, right? So that's a really important piece of the puzzle too, which I know can take some time, especially if maybe we have a heavy drinking history and we haven't necessarily had breakfast in the past. It might take time to train our body to start to eat again and start to become hungry in the morning. But that also plays kind of an important overlap into something called cortisol, which is our body's stress hormone. And cortisol is excreted. Excess cortisol is excreted anytime we drink alcohol. So when we drink alcohol chronically, right, we have these chronic elevations in stress hormone, and that can also throw off sugar cravings. It can throw off our sleep cycle. It can throw off our energy levels. And so that's another topic people really love to hear about. Cortisol is another kind of hot button topic these days.
And check that one out.
Say that again.
I'm going to have that checked out, my cortisol levels.
I recommend everyone having their cortisol levels checked out. I have one client who has a lot of issues with energy, with mood, has some mental health diagnoses that she's been on long-term medication for. And when we did her cortisol testing, she had basically zero cortisol production, right? And that situation, when we see that, what that means is, of course, you're going to have low energy. That's your body's kind of energy cycle. That's your body's kind of sleep-wake cycle. And so again, when we start to figure out these pieces that are maybe off, we can start to support that more specifically, right? Eating breakfast in the morning, because that's going to help boost cortisol in the morning. Taking vitamin C, because vitamin C helps with boosting our adrenal gland function. The adrenal glands are what produce cortisol. So there's all these cool things that we can do with food and with supplementation or specific nutrients that can help rebalance the body. And this is the stuff that I get real nerdy about, Ron, that I could talk about, forever.
I think people I think that's why my podcast is called The Truth About Addiction, not the unicorns fluffing bubbles and this is hard work, and you've got to put the work in. You know what makes me laugh? This is the honest truth. A guy will go and buy not only a guy, people go and buy a brand new Corvette.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll put it in for service every time it needs a service. It gets a tiny little noise, they run straight to the mechanic. But they don't listen to their own bodies. Mm. You don't put rubbish fuel in a Corvette. It runs terribly. So why are we putting rubbish fuel into ourselves?
Yeah.
And then we wonder why we're running terribly.
And you make a good point. I mean, symptoms are our body's way of saying something's out of balance, right? A migraine, for example, a physical pain, like a joint pain. Maybe there's an injury to that area. If we have digestion that's not working, maybe we have a lot of bloating, or maybe we have a skin issue, or maybe we have, I don't know, hormone imbalances, right? All of these things are the body sending signals saying, hey, something's off, right? And you're right. We do that with our car, or if our iPhone screen is broken, we go and we take care of our iPhone screen, right?
God, no.
Forget it if the cell phone's not working, right? What about the body, right?
Yeah.
And when we can listen to those things, when we can listen to what's going on, and when we can seek out a professional who can help us better identify and understand what's going on, then we can have more clarity, and we don't have to necessarily live with that symptom. I just had someone comment today, because I had posted on Instagram about how alcohol affects hormones and how that can manifest in, women's hormone imbalances, men's hormone imbalances like low testosterone, things like PMS or hormonal acne. And someone commented on this post and said that they had horrible acne for years while they were drinking. Their doctor prescribed them Accutane, which is a super strong medication to eliminate acne, and they quit drinking and the acne went away. They never took the Accutane, right? Yes, there's a lot of reasons why that can be happening. It could be hormones. That could actually have a lot to do with the liver or the gut not functioning properly. But that acne, for example, is a manifestation of what's going on inside of the body, right? Yeah. So these are the kinds of things that, especially if your listeners, I assume, probably come from a variety of backgrounds. So maybe if they're early in recovery or in longer term recovery, whether you are earlier in recovery and experiencing any symptoms, things physically that you have goals or that you want to eliminate or alleviate, but even in long-term recovery, right? And that could be from a history of alcohol use. it could also not be, right? It could be something separate. But if you're, regardless of where you're at in your journey, these, recommendations or, as we talk about symptoms and manifestations, they ring true for everyone.
Yeah. This is such a beautiful conversation. It is. I'm so glad that we're having this conversation because I had a doctor on, a lady a few months ago, and she was into the DNA of alcoholism. Mm-hmm. And she's saying, "Oh, we found the DNA. We found in the DNA we found the chromosome." So I said, "Yeah, that's good." I said, "But it's not relevant." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, it doesn't matter how we got the alcoholism. It's what are we going to do about it? You can't cut it out." She said, "Oh, but
well,
later."
And here's the thing.
Yep.
Maybe there is one gene that they can look at that might be more or less associated with alcoholism. But in my experience and my research for the book, one of the things that I talk about is there's really not, unless there's some very recent research that I am not aware of, there's not a single individual gene that says, if you have this gene, you will or you won't become an alcoholic, right? What we do know is that there are a variety of different genes that may or may not be associated with increased risk of alcoholism. There are genes of how our body metabolizes alcohol in the liver. There's genes associated with underproduction of dopamine in the brain. There's genes associated with alcoholism that have to do with our hunger and satiety hormones, which seem completely unconnected, right? And so for me, it's more of a matter of, well, what's the complex picture? Sure, if there's one gene and we can just go in and remove it and no one's an alcoholic again, that's not necessarily true, because in my experience, because what we know about alcohol now is that it's poison, it's toxin.
Exactly.
Right? If we continue to consume it, we will become addicted. Mm-hmm. I believe that truly. I think there is absolutely environmental issues and traumas and environmental exposure to alcohol at a young age, whether that is just being around parents who drink, or there's research that shows that the younger that we binge drink, the more likely we are to become addicted later in life. So someone who binge drinks at the age of 12 or 13 or 14 might have a higher likelihood than someone who binge drinks for the first time at 21.
Yeah. Right.
And so there's all of these different pieces, right? And for me, I'm with you. Like, all of that is interesting, but like, what do we do about it? If I binge drank at 13, what am I going to do about that now? I can't change that, right? Yeah. I can't undo what I did at age 13, but it can help me understand, the cycle and the patterns that I developed around alcohol later in life. But what's most important for me now is, what do I do about it today? What can I do about it now? And anytime we're talking about genes and genetics, there's also the conversation of epigenetics, which has to do with the genes or how we turn on or turn off the genes that we have. So we say that in the genetics field, that only about 10% of genes are static, in that they can't be changed. You have a gene for brown hair and you have brown hair. 90% of our genes are affected by our lifestyle, our diet, our exercise, our alcohol consumption, our drug use, our exposure to tobacco, right? All of these things affect actually how our genes express themselves. That's why someone who might have a cancer risk in their family influences that through their lifestyle. They either make good choices, eat good food, don't drink alcohol, and don't express the cancer, or through their lifestyle can turn that gene or cause that gene to turn on. Right. So it's such a complex topic.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I say to people, your choices are your karma.
Totally.
People always talk about karma. They use that, karma will get you. but they seem to think karma is a bad thing. Karma is a good thing. Karma is not a bad thing. Karma is only a bad thing if you're doing bad things.
Right.
Karma is not a
That's a
bad
good way to look at it.
True. My choices today give me back my karma. If I choose to be loving, understanding, forgiving, wow, what great karma is that coming back? Choose to be selfish, dishonest, and if I'm selfish, dishonest, I'm full of fear, anxiety, guilt, remorse, shame, fear. If I'm living a good life and I'm doing all the good things, I'm full of gratitude, abundance, because I have an incredible life. And I was a bad guy. Don't get me wrong, I'm not this little Saint Ronnie. He's sitting here like, oh golly, I spent 15 years. I spent 15 years in prison. You don't spend 15 years in prison because you're a good guy. You spend 15 years in prison because you got some serious thinking problems. You think that you're above the law. You think that you're smarter. You think that you're cool, or whatever it is. And now I just think that I think too much. I don't. Yeah. I really don't do a lot of thinking. I just do a lot of God's will, and that's a funny word for me because I'm an atheist. I'm not really an atheist. Yeah. I'm something. I don't know what God is, and it doesn't matter. It's like knowing what that is. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant in my life today. As long as it's love, understanding, and forgiveness, that's my higher power. That's who I hand my will and my life over to. Love, understanding, forgiveness. And the therapeutic value of what we're doing right now is without parallel. This conversation to anybody who's suffering with alcoholism and addiction is going to be sitting there nodding their head going like, oh, shit, oh, shit, oh, shit. And some people might go like, oh, that's all a wank. Well, later on when their mind opens and they
can listen back.
Yeah, true. How many times I read the basic text and the big book of the 12-step programs in the early days and thought, this is a load of crap. Then read it 15, 20 years later and went, oh, my God, that's what that meant. Oh, my God, that's what that meant. The writing's never changed.
That's when the little elves come in and change the words around, right?
Bastards. Yeah. But it's true.
No, but you know what? It is true. Because our experience evolves over time, right? We're not looking at it with the same eyes as we were before. And alcohol clouds our judgment so much. We can't think clearly. Our brain, and I was explaining this to someone earlier today, when we get drunk, that feeling that we feel, the woozy, dizzy thing that's happening, that is poisoning our nervous system.
Yep.
That is the sensation of our body being poisoned.
Yep.
Right? That's not fun. Our brain can't think when that's happening. Our bodies can't function properly when that's happening. When we take that away, amazing things happen, right? Because we're not poisoning ourselves. It's, alcohol is considered a class 1 carcinogen. A class 1 carcinogen is a list of substances that are known to cause cancer in the human body. Other substances on the class 1 carcinogen list include asbestos, tobacco, radiation, right? Would we consume radiation and say, well, maybe this is healthy for us, or maybe it's not that bad? No, we end up in hospital sick.
It feels so good, the radiation, man. Ask Homer Simpson.
I don't think that feels good.
But that's the truth. That is the truth of the matter. Alcohol is poison. It has got no medical benefits whatsoever, except for the rub on the outside of a wound to kill the bacteria. Okay, that sounds like a good idea. This thing we rub on the outside to kill the bacteria, let's drink it. So we kill all the good bacteria in our gut.
Yep.
Kill all the goodness inside of our liver. Give our brain corticosteroids.
Which is a vitamin deficiency, B1.
And now we're having a great day.
Yeah.
But I don't remember it because I was so pissed.
Yep.
It just doesn't make sense. I say to people,
really,
why do you
doesn't
vomit?
make any sense.
Why do you vomit? They go, what do you mean? I say, why do you vomit? They go, I drank too much. I said, no, your body's trying to tell you you've poisoned it and it's trying to expel the poison from your gut. I said, but it's not rocket science. You vomit because your body's telling you It's like when you get food poisoning.
You're poisoned.
Trying to
Yeah.
get rid of it. It's getting rid of it. You've now got alcohol poisoning. Your body's trying to get rid of it. When you inject heroin, your brain goes, oh my God, I'm being poisoned. I have to get rid of this. It doesn't realize that you put it intravenous, because normal people don't intravenously shoot shit into their veins and cut the liver and all that shit out. You know, we go through the intestines and doing that.
Skip right to the good stuff.
It's the drag racing of abuse. You know, intravenous drug use is the drag racing. You know, it's not a marathon. This is a sprint. Choom, bang, you're there. You know, and you know, like, it's really sad that people don't understand that there is no medical benefits whatsoever out of drinking alcohol or taking drugs. They're just smashing their cars up. They're now, you know, the cars are crashing each other in the derbies. They used to have them. I think they got them in America. They crash into each other. That's what we're doing.
Yep.
Now we're not in a Bentley cruising down the highway. We've got this Bentley now. We've taken it out to a track and started crashing into it. And we have to start looking after the Bentley. Start appreciating the Bentley needs to be cleaned. It needs to be serviced. It needs to be cared for, and it needs to be driven properly. It's like everything. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Totally.
And our brains they're not replaceable. I don't care what gene they come up with. They're not going to replace our brain if we keep doing brain damage through alcohol abuse and drug abuse. And the new drugs that are coming out are horrible. We know that. That bullshit you've got over there, that fracker and fentanyl and ice in Australia and all the drugs, you know, like, and these are the younger generations. The younger generation is not what, you know, there's still alcoholism, but, you know, a lot of the kids are being trapped well before they get the alcohol. And it's quite sad. It's quite disturbing for me to think, like, wow, you know, like, what does the future hold? And I just hope, because of people like yourself, and we're getting a voice. This internet is, people go, oh, I say recover out loud. Scream it from
I'm with you.
Scream it from the rooftop.
I'm with you. You know, I really do think, that it's important for us to speak out about this, because I think a lot of people are struggling in the dark. And I know I was struggling in the dark because I didn't know that there were communities of people speaking loudly about recovery, and it's growing, right? We're seeing a massive shift in the recent couple of years around these conversations being part of regular conversations, being part of, thankfully, now the health conversations, right? Where we're starting to see research saying, actually, that research that we said about alcohol a couple of years ago being good for us really isn't correct, right? And we're backpedaling on these things. So I think that I'm hopeful anyway that we can continue to move in a direction that helps serve people and helps get people off of alcohol and living their best lives and feeling more connected to themselves and their purpose. That's what it's helped me do.
No, I am very, very grateful that you've come on this program.
Well, I'm so grateful to be here too, Ron. Thank you so much for having me.
Tell me your book.
Thanks so much, Ron. It's called How to Eat to Change How You Drink.
How to eat, how to change what you drink. How to
eat to change how you drink.
I love doing what we're doing now and just being authentic and honest. So from the Truth About Addiction, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ron.
I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.